Ost, the Midnight Express vanished with 127 souls aboard, and when it reappeared 3 days later, every single passenger was gone. October 15th, 1952. The Northern Pacific Railway's car 447 departed Seattle at 11:47 p.m. bound for Chicago. 17 minutes into the journey, the train entered the Cascade Tunnel, a 7-mile bore through solid mountain granite. It never came out the other side, at least not when it should have. The engineer at the eastern portal waited. 12 minutes passed, 20, an hour. Railway officials assumed mechanical failure, perhaps a derailment inside the tunnel. They sent a maintenance crew in from the western entrance. The crew found nothing. No train, no debris, no bodies. Just empty rails disappearing into darkness. The train had been swallowed whole. For 72 hours, the Northern Pacific Railway scrambled to contain what they assumed was their worst disaster in company history. They contacted every station between Seattle and Chicago. They interviewed the ticket sellers who'd processed 127 passengers that night. They pulled the manifests. Families heading home for the holidays. Businessmen, a group of nuns traveling to a Chicago monastery, a jazz band called the Midnight Movers, and one passenger who'd bought his ticket with cash and signed the ledger as J. Smith. Then, on October 18th at 2:33 a.m., a freight supervisor doing a routine check at a rail yard outside Spokane, 60 miles from the tunnel, noticed something impossible. Car 447 sat on an auxiliary track, perfectly intact, lights still burning in the passenger compartments. He approached cautiously. The engine was cold, the cars were unlocked, and inside, there was no one. Not a single passenger. Not the conductor, not the engineer or the fireman. The luggage remained in the overhead racks. Coats hung on hooks. In the dining car, meals sat half-eaten on tables, cups of coffee still faintly warm. A newspaper dated October 15th lay folded on a seat. Crossword puzzle partially completed. A child's doll rested on the floor of the third compartment, one button eye staring at nothing. But what disturbed investigators most was the silence. No signs of struggle, no blood, no broken windows. The emergency brake hadn't been pulled. The doors showed no forced entry. It was as if 127 people had simply stood up mid-journey and walked into oblivion. The FBI arrived within hours. This was 1952. Cold War paranoia ran hot, and the disappearance of over 100 American citizens triggered immediate federal response. Agent Morris Garrett led the investigation, and his initial report noted anomalies inconsistent with any known form of criminal abduction or mass casualty event. The anomalies were disturbing. Every clock in every passenger car had stopped at exactly 12:04 a.m., 17 minutes after departure, the precise moment the train should have been deep inside the Cascade Tunnel. But the train wasn't in the tunnel. It was 60 miles away, in Spokane, on a track that required passing through 3 switching stations, each manned by attendants who swore no train had come through that night. Investigators found the engineer's logbook in the control cabin. The final entry, written in steady handwriting, read, 12:03 a.m., entering tunnel, all systems normal. Below it, in the same handwriting but pressed so hard the pencil had torn the paper, where are the stars? The phrase meant nothing to anyone. Then they found the passenger testimonies, or rather, what should have been testimonies. In 1952, long-distance rail travelers often kept personal journals or wrote letters during the journey. Investigators recovered 17 journals and 6 partially written letters from the abandoned luggage. Every single one ended mid-sentence at approximately midnight. A businessman named Robert Keach had been writing to his wife. "The tunnel ahead looks unusually dark tonight, almost like it's..." A nun named Sister Margaret had been journaling. "I feel a strange pressure in my ears, though we haven't changed elevation. The other sisters have gone quiet. Even the children have stopped." A letter from a young woman to her fiancé. "Something's wrong with the lights. They keep flickering, but not like electrical problems. It's like they're flickering in patterns, like Morse code, but I don't know Morse code, and anyway, why would the lights..." All 17 accounts stopped abruptly. Some mid-word. The investigation expanded. The Northern Pacific Railway provided a complete list of everyone who should have been aboard. The FBI interviewed families, employers, neighbors. They checked bank accounts, which remained untouched. They examined life insurance policies. They searched for any connection between the passengers, any reason this specific group might have been targeted. There was nothing. Random Americans living random lives, connected only by the decision to board a train on October 15th, 1952. Except for Jay Smith. The man who'd paid cash for his ticket didn't exist in any database. The signature was illegible. The ticket seller remembered him only as ordinary. So ordinary, I can't remember a single distinguishing feature. But Smith's assigned seat, compartment 7, seat 14A, contained something the others didn't. A leather briefcase, carefully locked, with a combination mechanism far more sophisticated than standard 1952 luggage. When FBI technicians finally opened it, they found scientific papers, advanced theoretical physics dealing with electromagnetic fields and temporal displacement possibilities. The papers were signed by Dr. Jonathan Simmons, a researcher who'd worked at Los Alamos during the Manhattan Project and had been dismissed in 1949 for pursuing research directions deemed non-essential to national security. The FBI found Simmons 3 days later, living under an assumed name in Portland. He denied being on the train. He denied owning a briefcase. He denied writing the papers, despite handwriting analysis confirming they were his. When pressed about temporal displacement, he said only, "Some doorways shouldn't be opened. Some tunnels go places they shouldn't." He refused to elaborate. 2 weeks later, Simmons was found dead in his apartment, apparently from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, though he'd left no note and had no history of depression. The investigation hit walls at every turn. The train speedometer had stopped at 37 miles per hour, normal tunnel speed. But the odometer showed the train had traveled 146 miles after entering the tunnel, despite being found only 60 miles away. The fuel tank was empty, though it should have had enough coal for 6 more hours. And most inexplicable, the train's undercarriage and wheels showed geological material, mineral deposits, that didn't match any rock formation in Washington state. Geologists identified trace elements consistent with limestone formations found only in specific cave systems in New Mexico. New Mexico, where Los Alamos was located, where the atomic bomb had been developed, where Simmons had worked. The FBI classification stamp came down hard. Files were sealed. Witnesses were interviewed a second time and asked to sign non-disclosure agreements. The official explanation released to the public was temporary mechanical failure and passenger evacuation, despite no record of where the passengers had evacuated to or how they'd left no trace. But the cover-up only fed the mystery. Railway workers refused to enter the Cascade Tunnel at night. They reported strange electromagnetic interference, compasses spinning wildly, radio communications cutting out at the exact spot where car 447 had disappeared. Some claimed to hear voices in the tunnel, dozens of voices, all whispering the same phrase. Where are the stars? In November 1952, 3 separate passengers on different trains passing through the tunnel reported seeing another train, a phantom train, moving in the opposite direction, its windows lit but showing only empty seats. One passenger, a Korean War veteran named Thomas Brennan, managed to snap a photograph before the vision vanished. The photograph showed a train that matched car 447's description, but the image was distorted, stretched as if photographed through warped glass. The FBI confiscated the photograph. Brennan was warned never to speak about what he'd seen. Then came the letters. Starting in January 1953, family members of the missing passengers began receiving mail. Not all of them, just 7 families. The letters were postmarked from different cities: Phoenix, Denver, Portland, Sacramento. Each letter was brief, written in the handwriting of the missing passenger, and each said essentially the same thing. I'm safe. Don't look for me. Don't try to understand. Some journeys don't have destinations you can map. The FBI's handwriting analysis confirmed authenticity. These were written by the missing passengers, but the paper was wrong. Chemical analysis showed the paper stock wasn't manufactured until 1955, 3 years in the future. That's when the FBI shut down the investigation entirely. The official file was marked closed, no criminal activity confirmed. The 127 passengers were declared legally dead in 1959, 7 years after the disappearance. Insurance companies paid out death benefits. Families held memorials. The Northern Pacific Railway decommissioned car 447, though it never explained why the train was later destroyed completely. Every component melted down. But the mystery didn't end. In 1973, a geological survey team exploring unmapped caves in New Mexico discovered something strange. A section of railroad track, approximately 40 feet long, buried inside a cave system that had been sealed by rock formations for at least 10,000 years. The track matched the specifications of 1950s Northern Pacific Railway standard gauge. Carved into the cave wall beside the track, in neat lettering, Car 447, October 15, 1952. The survey team's report was classified immediately. In 1989, a woman named Eleanor Keach, daughter of the businessman Robert Keach, who'd been aboard the train, received a package with no return address. Inside was her father's journal, the same one found aboard the abandoned train in 1952. But it contained new entries, dated 1953 through 1987, written in her father's handwriting. The entries described a place between places and time that doesn't move forward or backward but sideways. The final entry, dated March 3, 1987, read, I finally understood. We didn't disappear. We were selected. The tunnel was never just a tunnel. It was a threshold, and we crossed it. Tell Eleanor I watched her grow up, even though I couldn't be there. Tell her I'm proud of who she became. Robert Keach's official date of death was October 15, 1952. But his journal entries continued for 35 years after. Eleanor Keach tried to share her father's journal with journalists, researchers, anyone who would listen. Most dismissed it as an elaborate hoax. The few who investigated seriously found their research grants revoked, their academic positions jeopardized. Eleanor died in 2003, still searching for answers. The Cascade Tunnel remains operational. Trains pass through it dozens of times per day. but railway employees still report anomalies. Sudden temperature drops, electromagnetic interference, the sensation of missing time. Entering the tunnel and emerging with minutes unaccounted for on their watches. And on October 15th of every year, at exactly 12:04 a.m., sensors in the tunnel detect what engineers call ghost trains. Phantom signals suggesting a train is present when none is scheduled. The signals last exactly 17 minutes before disappearing. The mystery of car 4E7 remains unsolved. 127 people entered a tunnel in 1952 and never emerged. Their train appeared 60 miles away with no explanation. Some passengers may have sent letters from the future. One man's journal continued for decades after his disappearance. And somewhere in a classified government warehouse, there's a piece of railroad track that shouldn't exist, carved with a date that marks the night when a train full of ordinary Americans crossed a threshold into the impossible. The question isn't what happened to them. The question is, where did the tunnel really go? And if it was a doorway, is it still open? Because every year on October 15th, people report seeing a train that isn't on any schedule, moving through the darkness of the Cascade Tunnel, its windows lit, its passenger compartments full of shadows that might be people, all of them whispering a question no one can answer. Where are the stars?